Bruce.
Oh, yes, you are. Please rise for the invocation by Councilman Stevens.
Let's pray. Dear Most High Heavenly Father, thank you for this opportunity for us to get together to work for the citizens of our fine city. Thank you for the many blessings that you've given to us in our city here in Hickory, North Carolina. Be with us tonight as we make decisions which will affect each and every one of us. Impart some of your wisdom. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our special presentation will be continued until a future meeting. And Mr. Hanson, don't we have some road scholars to recognize?
Yes, we do, sir.
That's ROADS, Roads Scholars. And we are proud of our guys for going out and achieving and doing well in continuing education. Next, we'll turn to persons requesting to be heard, and I will call forward Mr. Bill Burton. Mr. Burton, we will be announcing as you speak. We'll announce every 3-minute interval. We ask people to keep their remarks within that time frame, but we don't want anybody to leave here with something that they want to say.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Manager, Council, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Bill Burton. I am the owner and president of Jack Site Construction Company, and I'm here today representing Jack Site Construction Company, seeking relief and reconsideration of a decision made at the last council meeting to deny final payment of $9,917 on a vacant building grant at the intersection of Highland Avenue and the new Lenore Ryan Boulevard extension. The building is fully leased to Lenore Ryan University. They first rented a portion of the building beginning January the 1st of this year. They came back in a couple of months and wanted to lease additional space, an additional 1,800 square feet and 800 square feet. And then in May, they came back and requested that I have a tenant move who was in 2 spaces that would give them the whole entire building. The first portion of the building they intended to use for their nursing program and would go through a major upfit, which was scheduled originally to start in August. Then it was delayed a little later on. And then due to an employee problem, they found out that their accreditation would be later than they expected, so the whole project was somewhat delayed. However, they continue to use the building. They continue to use the portion that they didn't originally want to use because they wanted to control the whole building. And exactly how they're planning to use it right now, other than what they have told me as of last Friday, the Vice President of Finance told me that they plan to move a conference table in, some desks and chairs, and they plan to have some staff meetings, a place to meet architects, engineers, subcontractors, and material suppliers, and to look at, demo, and review equipment that they would be purchasing for the new facility. So the building is occupied. It's in full use. The university has all the keys. The power is on. The lights are on. The air conditioning is running. The grass is mowed regularly. The night lights are on. And the council at the next to the last meeting granted a 120-day extension for the college or the university to upfit the space, which was very tight. After I received notice of that, I learned that the delay had been made by the university. So I made Mr. Leonetti, I wanted to be up straight and honest with him. I told him what the delay was. I didn't know that it was coming back to the council at the last meeting. If I would have known, I would have been here. So
3 minutes.
Go ahead, go ahead.
So the council denied my request, so I'm here tonight asking that you reconsider that and make that $9,100 payment, because I feel like we have fulfilled the intent of the vacant building grant. We've met the obligations, and the building is occupied and plans to be occupied for a long, long time. Thank you very much.
Mr. Mayor, I move we consider this as an item not on the agenda at a time after we finish our business is published.
Second.
So that will go to item 12, and we will consider the vacant building grant. Okay, they'll give us time for some discussion too, and we'll do it. Is there anyone else who'd like to be heard?
Need to vote on
Oh, I'm sorry.
I got a motion second.
Motion by Lael, second by Patton. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That's unanimous. Mr. Meisner is not here. He's helping his wife. Motion to reaffirm and ratify on second reading.
that. So moved.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That's unanimous. Motion by, who made the motion second?
I think I made.
Motion by Patton, second by Seaver. Anything to be removed from the consent agenda?
I move approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion by Lael, second by Zagaroli. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That's unanimous.
Mr. Mayor, I believe you all have minutes to consider approval also.
You know what, I miss those more often than not. We have a motion to approve the minutes of August 19th.
So moved.
Motion by Patton, second by Seaver. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That's unanimous. Thank you, Mr. Booth.
Informational items. One to report to council this evening is report of Mayor Wright's travel to the North Carolina League of Municipalities General Government Legislative Action Committee meeting. That's a mouthful, which I believe the mayor chaired on behalf of the league. And the report is the mileage reimbursement for the mayor's travel. Under new business, the first item of new business is a public hearing. And I will ask the city's Public Services Director, Mr. Chuck Hansen, to come to the podium and present the resolution for the closing of an unopened portion of 4th Street Northwest to council prior to opening the public hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Berry. Mayor, members of council, this is a public hearing that has been advertised as appropriate. This is actually on page 252 of your agenda. If you slide forward to that, it gives you a little bird's eye view of the property. This is essentially just a little bit east of us, the other side of 127, the other side of Sally Fox Park, in between Main Avenue and 2nd Avenue. There's a little triangle in there. It's page 252 in your agenda packet. BHM Holdings, there's a little unopened right-of-way. It's been there for years. Is requesting to close that, and that property will essentially be divided up amongst, split each way like a normal street closing would, and there's about 3 properties that would end up with a portion of that. If you sort of look at the slide, there's been a little over construction on that right-of-way over the years, and I think this is really just to clean up that property as it has changed hands. Staff doesn't have a problem with that. We never see that road being opened up in there. We would recommend that we retain a utility easement right if it's ever needed for any type of a utility in there in the future. So staff would recommend the closing of this.
Any questions? During public hearing, we offer 15 minutes for those people first who oppose the proposal, and then second, those who are in favor of the proposal. We ask that people share their time on a reasonable basis so everyone gets to speak who has something to say. As always, the clerk will say 3 minutes, 6 minutes, 9 minutes, and help us keep up with the progress of the discussion. At the end of the 15-minute periods, we have 5 minutes for rebuttal and 5 minutes for sur-rebuttal. And with that, I'll declare the public hearing open and ask if there's anyone who'd like to speak against this proposal. Is there anyone who would like to speak for this proposal? There being no one desiring to speak, I declare the public hearing closed and ask for motion or discussion.
Move approval of the street closure, BHM Holdings LLC.
Second.
Motion by Lael, second by Patton. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That is unanimous.
The next public hearing is also a resolution in order to close a portion of an unopened road. And I'll ask Mr. Hanson to come back to the podium and present that.
Thank you, Mr. Berry. Council, this one's actually on page 271 of your agenda. A little bird's eye view of that. This is in Sherwood Forest subdivision, which is in northeast Hickory, east of Springs Road, sort of south of Section House. It's actually outside the city limits, but it is in our ETJ. So therefore, we're the governing body that would actually close this unopened right-of-way. This has been requested by two adjoining property owners, Rogers and Harris. It is a section or a portion of 20th Avenue Northeast between 36th Street Northeast and Horseshoe Bend Road. Staff, again, would see no problem with closing this right-of-way, this unopened right-of-way. And again, with the only comment being we would retain a future utility easement if and when it was ever necessary.
These have been advertised. No one has come forward.
To my knowledge, no, we've had no questions on it. Yes, it has been advertised.
I declare the public hearing open and ask if there's anyone who would like to speak against this proposal. Is there anyone who would like to speak for this proposal? There being no one desiring to speak, I declare the public hearing closed and ask for motion or discussion. I'll move approval.
I'll second.
Motion by Wright, second by Seaver. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That's carried.
Third public hearing this evening relates to the city's community development block grant program to receive and consider the annual performance and evaluation report. And I'll ask the city's community development manager, Mr. Dave Leonetti, to come to the podium and present that to council.
Thank you, Mr. Berry, Mayor Wright, members of council, Mr. Crone. Tonight I'm here to present the city's consolidated annual performance and evaluation report for community development activities. In short, we call that the CAPER in HUD speak. As an entitlement recipient of community development block grant funds from the Department of Housing and Urban Development, the city is required to submit a report on its accomplishments, sort of from a activity standpoint and also from a financial standpoint. This public hearing is required as part of that process. I'm just going to give you a brief synopsis. You have the entire report in your packets tonight. In fiscal year 2013-14, the city spent roughly $464,000 on community development activities. That's just community development block grant funds. We spent additional funds for our urgent repair program and some other different sources that aren't included within this report. Of those funds, roughly $110,000 was invested into a variety of housing rehabilitation activities that included low-interest loans to homeowners, a loan to Habitat for Humanity to assist with their rehabilitation programs, and the rehab of a city-owned property for sale to an income-eligible homeowner. 3 homeowners received loans through the rehab loan program, and 4 homeowners were assisted through Habitat for Humanity's programs during the fiscal year. And that 3 homeowner number does not include, I think we did roughly 8 or 9 homeowners with the urgent repair program. That's not part of this report. The city continued to offer down payment assistance loans to income eligible first-time home buyers. What that is basically it's a deferred second mortgage that helps lower the monthly payments on those mortgages to make them more affordable on a monthly basis. $22,500 was invested to assist 4 first-time home buyers. The city continued to offer grants to nonprofit public service agencies that serve low to moderate income individuals. Approximately $43,000 was used to assist 6 nonprofits. Those included the City of Refuge After School Program, the Hickory Soup Kitchen, Alpha, Exodus Homes, Cooperative Christian Ministry, and Safe Harbor Rescue Mission. The biggest piece of the city's community development activities is the public facility and infrastructure projects. During the past fiscal year, approximately $155,000 was used to construct a picnic shelter and accessible restrooms at Kiwanis Park in the Kenworth neighborhood. That was finished shortly after the fiscal year began. There'll be roughly $90,000 of expenses in this fiscal year. That project ran roughly $240,000. That project is now complete though, and the bathrooms and the picnic shelter are open. Roughly $70,000 was used to resurface 3 neighborhood streets in the Ridgeview, Kenworth, and Green Park neighborhoods. $6,150 was used to begin the rehabilitation of the exterior of the former Ridgeview Public Library. That restoration is going to be completed during this fiscal year. The CBSA Architects is helping interfaith with the bids for the interior, and that should be going out to bid. If it hasn't been released already, it should be in the next couple of weeks. The bid opening, I believe, is towards the end of September. Finally, $55,000 was used for program administration and fair housing activities over the past year, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Where did the money come from Green Park, Optimus Park improvements? Is that with the general funds?
Those are going to be CDBG activities. This is what we're looking at. Yeah, this is this current year's budget. Those funds will be spent.
Yeah, I'm thinking on a calendar year. You're on a fiscal year.
I understand. I do that all the time. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. With that, I'll declare the public hearing open and ask if there's anyone here who would like to speak against that report and our acceptance of it. Is there anyone who would like to speak for that report and our acceptance? With that, I declare the public hearing closed and ask for motion or discussion.
I move approval.
Second.
Motion by Seaver, second by Patton. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That's unanimous. Speaking of Optimus Park, I happened to drive through there, and it's really looking a lot better. And I understand the people in Green Park are very pleased with what's being accomplished there. And I know the people throughout this city and region, and particularly Kenworth, are very happy with what's happened at Kiwanis Park. And I guess I'm probably going to spill the beans here, but they approached Mr. Burry and secondly approached me. The Kiwanis Club wants to talk about fundraising for a splash pad out there, which would be a great place to partner with someone. And I got a feeling it's going to happen. Now the parking deck.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Your final public hearing this evening is required by the Local Government Commission, and it's to consider the financing concept for the Hickory Metro Convention Center parking deck. And we've actually got 2 items, this public hearing and then a departmental report we'll take care of after the public hearing action related to the deck. But just to kind of back up in time and remind everybody, the convention center, as it's commonly known as, is its own authority established by state law. and is governed by a board that is appointed by Hickory City Council and the City of Conover, those two entities having hotels in their jurisdiction. The convention center is completely self-supported in terms of the revenue from the hotel occupancy tax and also the activities of the convention center itself completely fund their operation and their capital. 2 years ago, actually, the plan was developed to enhance parking. One of the downsides of success is that you have to grow to accommodate your success, and as the convention center was having more events and more public events and larger events, parking was maximized. Various surface parking was utilized in kind of a short-term temporary way, and then eventually even some of that was paved to accommodate parking, but we've still been short of parking. And the TDA and the City of Hickory and the City of Conover approached the General Assembly and sought an additional 1% added to the occupancy tax, so moving it from 5 to 6%, with an eye specifically toward using that additional 1% to fund the needed parking deck. As you recall, on January 21st of this year, architect Scott Mitchell came to council and presented concepts and plans for the parking deck. Later in the year, on May 6th, City Council approved the contract with Mr. Mitchell to do the bid, construction, administration, and the final drawings of the structure. Stop there and remind everybody that although it's run by the Tourism Development Authority, the physical facility is actually owned by the City of Hickory. And so that means the city is involved in construction and the city is involved in financing. All of those construction and financing, parking decks, buildings, etc., all though 100% funded by the occupancy tax and the operations of the convention center. On June 3rd, City Council adopted a resolution supporting an application to the Local Government Commission to secure financing. And so we're here tonight for the next step in that process, which is to conduct a public hearing, receive input from the community on the plan, and the plan is to use installment purchase. Again, that is approved by the Local Government Commission, which the mayor sits on. So you'll have that coming to you shortly.
But I will recuse myself.
Understand? That's the long and short of it. We do, although we are not asking you to take action tonight, we do know what the financing terms will be, and we will come back to you at your next meeting and ask you to enter into the installment for purchasing agreement. But we have received the bids back and are excited that we've been quoted a 2.94% interest rate over 15 years. As Mr. Wood was doing his planning with Ms. Leach at the TDA, we were anticipating 3.5% range, and so we're excited that we came in lower than that, and be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Is that now when we did the bonds 7 or 8 years ago, we went to Washington, we went to New York for a rating meeting. Mm-hmm. Did we have to do? We didn't do any of that this year. Mm-hmm. Will there be anything like that involved in the referendum in November?
Yes, Mr. Ware, there will be. If the voters approve the referendum and the city moves forward with general obligation debt, we will need to be rated again, and we'll have to go through that process to put all our financials, our economic history, all of that before the rating agencies and be rated again before that debt's issued. Yes, sir.
This is an aside, but I'll never forget going up there, and it was the week that Lehman Brothers went bankrupt. Was it the week after? Week before. And of course, the rating agencies, Moody's and Standard & Poor's, we met with them, and they were on pins and needles. They were so nervous. They didn't want to make a decision on anything. So it was an interesting time to be up there, and yet we got an upgrade in our rating. So we were proud of that. Okay.
I want to question, if you were having a large convention in Hickory, no matter how many people could we But it might be a question like, how many beds do we have there that would be available?
Well, you look at the whole kind of the convention shed, I think is what they call it. You look at the whole region of where people could stay, and of course there's hundreds, if not 1,000 beds in our area. This is going to add 157 parking spaces. And if you'll remember when Mr. Mitchell came and presented it, the parking deck will actually come off of the front of the building. And if you remember, the parking now is terraced, so you're actually going down as you come to 13th Avenue into the interstate. So we thought it was a good plan, and I say we, I sit on the TDA board as the city manager. The mayor was on that board, has just rolled off of that recently. Felt like a good plan was to use the existing slope and frankly to build a structure that would enhance the visibility of the convention center from the interstate. And if you remember again seeing those plans, you're not going to really understand that's a parking deck until you're there. I mean, the way it's been designed, it actually looks like it's a piece of the building, and that's real common nowadays. You see lots of parking decks, you don't realize that's what they are until you're there. So we're excited about the overall visual effect that it will have too.
A large convention there is 1,500 people. And the 157 additional spaces, you know, it's going to accommodate somewhere between 157 and 600 more people. So that's a pretty sizable increase in the percentage increase in what we can handle there.
Maybe draw some maybe weren't big enough before, so hopefully.
It will be a plus. With that, I'll declare the public hearing open and ask if there's anyone who would like to speak against this proposal. Is there anyone who would like to speak for this proposal? There being no one desiring to speak, I declare the public hearing closed and ask for motion or discussion.
I don't know that I think they're going to bring the actual financing agreement before us at a later date for motion and approval.
That's right.
Is that right?
That is correct. Well, actually, technically, you don't need to take action tonight. You just needed to hold this public hearing and receive the input of the public, and then we actually send a letter to the LGC that has all the information about the public hearing saying it was held on this date.
We've had the public hearing.
Had the public hearing.
Okay?
Well, I move approval of
Well, what you could do is you could accept the staff report with the information about the public hearing if you'd like, which reviews the financing concept.
Well, I move we approve the report and look forward to that parking deck getting started. I'll second that.
Motion by Seaver, second by Guess. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That's unanimous.
Now, your first departmental report is the sister to the public hearing that you just conducted, and that is the actual awarding of the bids for the parking deck at the convention center. That's why I gave so much background about how the convention center is set up. So the city of Hickory is responsible for the facility itself and issued or released the plans. Initially, we only received 2 bids from contractors on August 5th. So we did not open those bids. Went back out for an additional 7 days. At the end of that period of time, we received 3 bids from Hickory Construction Company, $2.6 million, Matthews Construction Company, $2.576, and WC Construction Company out of Winston-Salem for $3.2 million. Again, just a little bit of background. Originally in the planning, the parking deck was estimated to be north of $3 million. As we were budgeting, we were still around that $3 million number, so feel very optimistic that this is a good bid. And staff would recommend that council award the bid, low responsible bidder, Matthews Construction Company, in the amount of $2,576,000. And it is a turnkey operation. And I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have on that.
Well, I make a motion we approve that.
Second.
Motion by Wright, second by Patton. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That's unanimous.
Next departmental report, I'll ask Mr. Hanson to come back to the podium. And what I've asked Mr. Hanson to do this evening is to kind of update council and the public on the work that is going on at Lyerly Mill and that redevelopment. Of course, City Council has entered into an economic development agreement for Transportation Insight to develop their headquarters there and add jobs. As this project is being done in the building itself, the time is coming where the public improvements as it relates to parking and roads, etc., will be coming to you at future meetings. So I thought it'd be timely to have Mr. Hanson kind of go over the site plan there, which you can have a good time going over that. There's a lot of lines on it, and explain to council kind of what the plan is with the site there as we move forward.
Thank you, Mr. Berry. Again, this is the Lyerly Mill redevelopment project we're talking about. Give you a little update. It's well under design, if you will, and it's out for bids. And when I say out for bids, what I'm talking about, there's a general statute that lets the city partner with a developer in a downtown development type project, and that's essentially what this one falls in. And so with, get you oriented on, don't get lost in all the lines here yet. Up is north on this map, believe it or not. This is 127. The railroad tracks are right here, right at the top of the page. The building itself is this block that you see. And so the parking lot that Mr. Berry was talking about is essentially this piece of property towards the railroad tracks from the building. This is First Avenue, the one way into town from Lenore University, or Lenore Boulevard. 127 again. This little street right here, right parallel to the railroad tracks, is Main Avenue Way. So what you have is several projects that are showing on one sketch here. And that's really what I wanted to explain in simple terms is what all's involved in bidding a project here. Some of this obviously is their building and their redevelopment on their site. That's part of this bid package that really doesn't relate to us. What does relate to us as the city is the parking lot as a whole, the drainage in this area starts about right here and drains through here under the railroad tracks through Carolina Park and on out towards Bass Smith Funeral Home direction, Oakwood Cemetery. So the high spot is here, runs to the north. So what happens is, as there's work going on in this location, some of this storm drainage is getting reworked, but more importantly, we really didn't feel it was prudent to put a brand new parking lot on 50-plus-year-old infrastructure under the ground right there. So what's happening is this through infrastructure now being on our future piece of property is being replaced. It also takes into account some new, there's also existing drainage that comes in this way. So the simple component in these dark lines are new storm drainage related to the subbase of the parking deck, or parking lot, excuse me. Also downstream, some of us remember some storm drainage issues that's happened over the last 20 years and heavy thunderstorms. So we feel like this is a key opportunity to help lessen the potential for that in the future. And so what you see is some dark lines here and sort of a clouded area in red and a dark line and a clouded area in red. That is actually getting bid as a separate component of this bid, which is essentially some underground detention. So that in that heavy thunderstorm, we're actually going to store some water because there's really only one pipe where all this stuff goes under the railroad tracks. And we obviously don't want that one to have a problem if we can help it. So again, being good stewards for sort of downstream infrastructure on our property, if you will, there's some detention that's taking place on this property. Another component of the bid, so we have the parking lot. If you think of it from the stone and the asphalt up, the curb and gutter in the parking lot, that's one component. Another component is this replacing these old storm drainage that exists out there today. A third component is this detention that helps in the future. Another component is Main Avenue Way, which has no curb and gutter and no sidewalk along it. So this is the time to upgrade at least this side of Main Avenue Way from sort of 3rd Street over here back to 127 as well. If anybody's been through there, they know that's a very tight little entrance into Main Avenue Way. This radius will get opened up on 127 and a little bit of a slip lane constructed along 127. So that's a Main Avenue Way construction is a piece of this, as is the improvement of the entryway along 127. The one thing the DOT is requiring in this project is if you're 127, come under the railroad track, so you're southbound on 127, and you turn left into essentially Main Avenue Way or this main entrance. If you think about the railroad overpasses right here, the Main Avenue overpass over 127 is right there. So there's really no room to create a left turn lane as you're heading south on 127 into Main Avenue Way right there. There is a cut there. It allows that left in, but there's not much of an area to construct that turn lane. So what the DOT is requiring in this case is from about here to this main entrance, which connects to the parking lot, to actually create a left turn lane, if you will, into this main entrance. So there's actually work going on in those medians in 127 where the rose bushes are, which almost is a site problem in themselves, and it's definitely a safety issue for our workers standing out there. You got to block 2 lanes of 127 off to maintain that landscaping, and that's sort of a dangerous scenario at best. So what happens with these two islands, they essentially become in this plan become a stamped concrete island that creates a left turn lane into this main entrance, which then allows access into the parking lot too. So there's several components of what's actually getting bid, and in working with the designers, they're designing our component of that related to the parking lot as well as this part. So again, this block, it only makes sense that probably one contractor ends up doing all this from a scheduling and a coordination standpoint. So what's happening is our components are actually being bid as this project, but they're bid as separate bid items so we can see what those numbers are and account for them separately. So that's really what I want to try to explain here is all the components that are happening within the block. They have their road and redevelopment that's happening here, but with regard to the parking lot, Main Avenue, storm drainage, and 127, those are all separate bid components within this project. Some of that is replacing old infrastructure. Some of it is putting infrastructure on existing roads that never had it to start with. Some of it is improving a safety factor on 127. And some of it is helping the potential to lessen downstream drainage problems from a storage standpoint. So as this gets bid and we bring this back to you, and I just want you to realize up front there's a lot of pieces to this pie. That's all I have.
Is it a protected left? Off 127?
No, it's just a slip left lane to allow 3 or 4 cars at most to get out of the through traffic. So it's a short left turn lane. I mean, it's as long as we can make it and not have a problem with Main Avenue and the bridge, if you will, as you're heading south. So it's ends up being about the minimum taper, and about 3 cars can get in there. But it does get them out of the travel way now, and that doesn't exist at all out there today, and hasn't in the past. Also, it allows traffic to get off the northbound 127. It creates a little slip lane here and it opens up this radius quite a bit and allows them to get out of 127 northbound relatively quick to make that right-hand turn.
That water detention thing you're talking about, is that an underground?
Yes, sir. It's essentially pipes buried in the ground that are oversized, and they have a smaller outlet. So you got Excuse me?
Like the bus station?
No, the bus station is more of an above ground scenario and a little bit of a wet well buried in stone. This one is a true, you bury pipes in the ground, if you will, and you have a bigger hole coming in and a smaller hole going out, and that essentially forces that water to back up in that pipe system and allows it to go out over a longer period of time.
Not create more pressure.
Well, it creates pressure in the pipe system itself, and but again, that head pressure is very, very low because it's, 5 feet high or less, something like that. It's not large. The one other thing that is a pretty big item that about in this area, there's a cistern that was found that looks like to be somewhere in the 60-foot deep range. And from what we can tell and talking to history, it appears that they actually pulled water out of that in the past and brought it to this end of the block where they made ice out of it. And so again, in order to put a parking lot on top of that safely, you've got to fill that with stone, for lack of a better word. There's a proper way to sort of close that up and allow it to function. But there is a big hole there, and has to be addressed. So you never know what you're going to find on some of these redevelopments till you really start digging around. But that's several pieces to this project, but again, it's a great redevelopment in a downtown area. Thank you.
Well, if a Corvette got caught in the system, that would be a very visible place. You're taking care of us on that one.
Doing the best we can.
The next departmental report, I'll just have Mr. Hanson come right back up and ask council to approve a contract with Dane Construction for the replacement of the 46th Avenue Northeast Bridge. I do want to make a just little side comment and remind everybody, it was just about a year ago, July 27th, 2013, that we had those torrential rains and the bridge was blown out. And, it was a very proud moment for me to recognize how the city was actually able to literally in a matter of hours build a backup road to get into that neighborhood, which was completely cut off. And there was a lady who was expecting a baby. And I wasn't actually here when all that happened. As I got back and drove that dirt road, and staff was kind of explaining the process they went through to do it, I was humbled and amazed at the ingenuity of city engineering and our city co-workers to work around that situation and to get those folks in and out of their subdivision. Now we're back to you after the whole process with FEMA, and I'm still a little bit Mr. Hanson's thunder, but all that process we had to go through, now we're back to you ready to award the bid to rebuild the bridge with FEMA's help. So Mr. Hanson.
Thank you, Mr. Berry. Any questions? Mr. Berry is exactly correct. The one key thing seems like, well, it's been a year ago. That's a long time, and it is a long time. FEMA finally got to town in about January, February time frame after July of 13. January, February of 14 is when they actually finally got here and were able to get this project up and looked at. And so what we've done essentially since February of this year is to design this project, work through the permits that we had to have with Diener and the Corps, and basically we've met with the neighborhood out there, presented them the project, show them what it looks like. We had one of our lead engineers overriding this project. It was actually designed by McGill and Associates between their Asheville and Hickory office. I think that process went well. It just seems like we lost 6 to 7 months, 7.5 months, because we were sort of on a standstill waiting on FEMA to get through the process of their process and approve where we could pull the trigger and go. Now what was out there was a 24-foot pipe. That's more from me to the wall, and that's what was washed out. That's the next one right here. Here's a sort of before, right after the storm and before the bridge. All right, this was obviously after the storm. This is 24 feet across here to give you some reference. This was road level across here. This was essentially the base of a sort of a rock wall, decorative rock wall with some wrought iron on top of it. This was the head wall, so this is upstream. Water flows this way. There's the collapsed corrugated metal pipe in the bottom of this hole. And then this head wall on this side is essentially fallen into the waterway. So as you go out there today, this is still pretty close to what you see. Water's flowing through here. We pulled some of the debris out that was obviously blocking it up. And so what'll happen, this is sort of the rendering of the bridge project that is to be constructed. In this case, we're not putting a pipe back. We're actually building a bridge that'll span across the top of this. And so this waterway that you see was restricted, if you will, by this shape. Now will essentially be open all the way across this span. So we're improving or much lessening the potential for this to happen again out there. This one was designed to handle a 100-year storm. We know that one was about a 1,000-year storm. This is getting in the 500, 600-year range. So FEMA's component of this, what they pay for in simple terms is what was there 5 minutes before the storm. They started about 600,000. We were able to get to 812,000 out of them towards this project. This project we felt like was going to be about 1.1 million to go back, and so that is some improvement of obviously what was there before. We had 5 bids. Low bidder was $942,203.05. That's Dane Construction out of Mooresville, North Carolina. The engineer's estimate of 1.12 was right in the middle of the 5, which is exactly where we would want it to be. We felt like everybody was bidding the same project. High bid was about 1.4 million of the 5. So again, end product will be box girder bridge across here, sidewalk. This is actually cast in place concrete, but it's got a stone face or a cast in place stone face on it, and that'll be actually stained in after the fact. So this is essentially a concrete wall. That's it's not a stone that's added after the fact. It's you put a mold up there that has a rock mold in it. The neighbors were well pleased with this. Again, this is sort of a little bit of a DOT standard. This is a double rail on top of the wall to add some safety barrier height, pedestrian barrier height. But in this case, it's essentially black aluminum is what's up there, so we don't end up with a maintenance issue there. So what we're really asking you is to approve this project, to award it to Dane Construction, amount of $942,202.05. From a budgeting standpoint, we'd also like a contingency component to be put into the budget so that if we don't actually have to stop the project over the course of the 8 months it's going to take to build this thing, if there is a hiccup somewhere. So that budget number is $1,035,000. That's less than 10%, obviously, but we stay pretty hard with our contingency monies. But it just slows the process up if we happen to miss a schedule and add 2-3 weeks to an answer that needs to be known tomorrow. So staff's recommendation is to approve this, and let's start building something.
I make a motion that we approve the bridge.
One question. Once we approve it, what kind of time frame are we looking at?
Well, the contractor's essentially ready to go as soon as we give them the notice to proceed. They have 15 days to start making things happen. And And from there, so it'll be a winter, it's about an 8-month construction. Hopefully we can beat that with some weather this winter, but it's about an 8-month job.
Okay, so
Now,
you said FEMA was going to give $812,000 to the project.
812 is what they've agreed to.
They've agreed
at this point.
At this
towards
point.
towards this project.
Okay, so do we have? We feel reasonably sure that they're going to follow through with an amount.
Yes.
No less than 812.
Yes, and we'll probably do a little asking for some more before it's done.
Right, and so in terms of the cash flow, we would expect to get those monies from FEMA when?
This is what they consider a large project, so that would be a reimbursement to us as this one is completed. On the other 400 projects we're working on from that storm, those are all considered small projects, and that's a case that we've agreed that this one's going to cost $500 and that one costs $1,000. Those are paid up front, and if this one costs $400 to fix and that one costs $1,200 to fix, we made $100 here and we lost $100 there. So from that standpoint, that's how their process works. This one is a reimbursement as a large project, so we get reimbursed those funds as we complete this one.
Okay,
But this is actually the only project out of all the ones we've had that's going to work that way with FEMA.
Right. So we'll. I didn't see a budget amendment for a project, appropriating for a project.
It's already been set up.
It's
At the previous meeting.
at a previous meeting we've said
1.3 million.
1.3 million. Okay.
Are there any contingencies on this as far as them approving it after the fact? They have to come out and, I don't.
No, because essentially, keep in mind, they're not approving this bridge. They're approving what was there right before this bridge. We didn't feel like it was prudent to put that same thing back. In fact, putting that same thing back is going to cost more than it is to build this bridge based on putting the dirt back that is gone, essentially. So we're improving the flow, lessening the cost of the job. And so,
guaranteed that money?
Yes, they've signed off that this number is 812. Now, still got to get that letter, but that's going through their process. But we've sat down and agreed to that number. Yes.
What's the time frame once we complete the job that they actually reimburse? Is it
That's usually 2 to 3 months. Truthfully, it's not 2 to 3 weeks, but it's.
Okay.
It's a couple of month process, because what they have to do for one like this, they actually come out and audit it. They come out and make sure what you're saying is there, and something's been fixed. And so it's not just an invoice and a payment.
Don't take our word for it.
More than a football.
Thank you.
Good work on that.
Got a motion.
Motion from Zagaroli, second from
I'll second.
Seaver. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That's unanimous.
The next departmental report is 2 related items. As you all are well aware, the city and Catawba County through the Economic Development Corporation have partnered to basically option property, 178 acres that we've been discussing as Park 1764, which sits between Startown and Robinwood Roads. And as Catawba County Board of Commissioners went through the process of rezoning that property for an industrial use, they felt it prudent to go ahead and create an interlocal agreement between Catawba County and the city of Hickory that basically looks like restrictive covenants and zoning that both the city and the county will respect as it relates to this property. So they're basically setting in place a document that you all would agree to that says as that property is annexed into the city and it's rezoned by the city, you will abide by the criteria that Catawba County established for the zoning as well. So if you look on your in your agenda packet on page 338 is the first document. And I'm not going to read the whole thing, but just to give you the highlights, property egress and ingress is identified. saying that the park will have entrances and exits at both Robinwood and Startown roads, and that heavy vehicle traffic will be encouraged to use Robinwood Road. Also, it's contemplated that there will need to be traffic study analysis as those are done and warrant turn lanes and road improvements. Those will be made by DOT. The second is maximum building height. No structure of any kind constructed in the park shall exceed the height of 40 feet above the maximum elevation of the nearest public roadway. And that was something that we discussed with their staff and had make sure we understood it correctly. We felt 40 feet was a little short until we recognized the fall of that property. And of course, Startown and Robinwood roads are the highest points of the property, and it falls down, and we feel like a building of 60 to 70 feet could actually be constructed in there and still meet the 40-foot maximum elevation from the roadway. Nuisances, just simply, again, an opportunity to try to protect the neighbors both during construction and in the operation of businesses that we hope will be there. And that deals with construction activity as well as any fumes, odors, gases, vapors, etc., and noise levels that could be in the park. And then lays out kind of a general concept of park landscaping with trees and vegetation, etc. The walking trail that we felt like has been a great amenity to the park and will be the neighborhood as well. Permanent easements that will need to be established, as well as conservation easements along the stream. All activity, of course, must be consistent with law. And then it lays out the principal permitted uses, which are light industrial uses, office-related uses, office operations, and warehousing and distribution, only which is incidental to the on-site permitted use. But warehousing, distribution, or trucking cannot be the primary use of the facility. Then item 9 is the principal uses not permitted, a whole host of those from A to Z, starting with adult daycare and ending with zoos. And then property maintenance, basically committing that a property owners association will be established. Then setback requirements, building facades, metal facades are not permitted within 1764. All of the buildings will be designed to exist in a complementary fashion to the rural business park setting in as much as possible. Signage will be themed, permitted to monument style signs. Pole signs will not be used. And then it contemplates maintaining the rural character of the property and its heritage, which of course we've discussed all along. And then lastly, that the EDC can't move forward without the permission of both the City Council and the Catawba County Commissioners. County Commissioners actually approved this document on August 8th, and staff recommends approval by City Council this evening.
I have a couple questions. So what's the next? We've got to, I think this agreement talks about getting some covenants attached to the property. Who's in charge of that? When will that come? When will we know when that conservation easement's established? Where will it be? I mean, my concern is that if we market the property, this is all good stuff. This is not a negative comment by any means. It's more of a process comment. And we have a user. Are we going to be behind in the background that the planning and infrastructure zoning work that we've got to do? Because if I'm a company and I locate there, there's really no, right now there's no restrictions or covenants or anything, just this document.
Yeah, that's a great question. We had done a lot of work even prior to the rezoning to kind of benchmark with other like business parks and get their restrictive covenants, and we've analyzed those. Ultimately, Scott Millar is the one who's the point person on bringing that to the county and the city for us to approve, and I don't know exactly where he is in the work on that, but I know it is going forward.
So that'll be one of the next steps.
It will. It will.
Any other questions or discussions? Motion to approve.
I move approval.
I second.
Motion by Patton, second by Lael. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That's unanimous.
And then the next agreement on page 348 is very simple. And it simply puts into an agreement what we have all discussed and verbally agreed to, and that is that the county and the city have the authority to direct the EDC in this. So I'll just briefly cover it after you get past the description of the properties. That the county and the city have agreed to work together to develop a large tract of land known as Park 1764 with the end goal of increasing jobs and tax base. And whereas the EDC, serving as a catalyst for industrial and business development in Catawba County, has put together options for properties within Park 1764 and is charged with marketing the park and securing buyers. Now, therefore, in consideration of mutual covenants contained herein, the parties hereto agree as follows. The EDC agrees that prior to exercising an option or offer to purchase for any property within or associated with Park 1764, it shall first consult with and obtain authorization to proceed from both the Catawba County Board of Commissioners and the Hickory City Council. And then we all agreed to that, and this has already been approved by the EDC board and by Catawba County Commissioners. So again, we've all envisioned and agreed all along that the city and the county would jointly make those decisions. This simply puts it into writing.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion by Lael, second by Guess. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That's unanimous.
Your next departmental report, I'll ask Mr. Dave Leonade to come to the podium and present an amendment to a vacant building revitalization and demo grant with Shuford Mills LLC.
Thank you, Mr. Berry, Mayor Wright, members of council, Mr. Crone. I'm going to have a brief presentation tonight. This grant was approved back in January of 2014, and it's actually a $20,000 grant, not a $25,000 grant. I think I was thinking of a different project this morning when I was doing this. They're demolishing the building at 1360 Highland Avenue Northeast, which is right at the intersection of Springs Road and Highland Avenue, the old A.A. Shuford Mill building. The project deadline is currently October 4th, 2014. For those of you who've been by, the demolition's going pretty well. They're just about finished the demolition part. They're getting a grinder out on site in the next couple of days to grind up the wood that is unusable on the site and some other things related to cleaning it up. And then they're going to do some regrading after that. The reason that they have asked for an extension of 120 days is that they would like to, and you can see what they left if you've been by there. They left the portion of the wall, and they would like to blow out the windows and open them up, kind of to basically sort of have a, I guess, like kind of a homage to the building that was there before, as they kind of prepare that site for potential redevelopment. Large-scale redevelopment is pretty unlikely on that site, just based on the skinniness of the property. You can probably put a small building up close towards 15th Street there, but the rest of it is really thin in terms of actually putting anything besides maybe some parking. Basically, saving that portion of the wall will require rebuilding kind of a parapet type on the top of it, and they've reloaded some bricks there that they recycled from the rest of the building. This is essentially what they're looking at doing, is basically this will be open here. These were formerly, for the last, I don't know, probably 50 or 60 years, those were bricked over. And then basically they're using some type of steel to hold the wall up and reconstruct it. And in order to complete this process, they're asking for an additional 120 days from the October 4th deadline. With that, the Business Development Committee reviewed this at their most recent meeting, and they recommend approval. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
And staff recommends approval.
Yes, sir.
If we deny it, did they lose the 20,000, or did they tear the wall down? Or?
Most likely, they could get the majority, if not everything, finished by the October 4th deadline. I think it would be, they would have a difficult time finishing it now, just with that, since they have left that portion up. I guess technically, in order to get paid, they would need to finish, they would need to demolish that. But we could probably work with them on that.
Because we think it's a better plan now.
That's, yes.
Yeah, it was kind of something that was discussed between staff and them, because as I recall, their plan was to just put a parking lot there, and they thought, you know, this would be a nice buffer from the road, so it would just be a parking lot, and again, kind of give that historical sense to the area. So we were supportive of it, and again, that's going to take longer for them to, keep that wall there than just to have taken it down. So
I think it would definitely improve the appearance as opposed to, you know, along that roadway.
I think it was
Is it just a parking lot? I move approval.
I second that.
Any further discussion? You know, it reminds me, it looks a little like a Coliseum in a way. It's brick. Motion by Patton, second by Zagaroli.
Yeah.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That's unanimous.
ask Mr. Leonid to come back to the podium and present a vacant building and demo grant. This is a new one. Present that to City Council.
All right, this is for the property at 108 South Center Street. It's the former Hickory Auto Supply building. There's a number. Exodus Homes had their warehouse and store in there up until a few years ago when the building was deemed unsafe due to some roof issues. To give you a little background, if you'll remember at your last meeting, the guidelines were tweaked a little bit, and now the program allows for grants of up to $20,000 or 15% of eligible project costs for the rehabilitation of vacant buildings. At their last BDC meeting, they recommended this application for $30,000 because it was submitted prior to the modification of those guidelines. But obviously that's your decision as to how you want to treat that. The property is located, like I said, at 108 South Center Street, so it's roughly a block south of the railroad tracks. It's owned, it was recently purchased from the previous owner, and now it's owned by The Block 108 LLC. It's a former commercial building. The applicant, according to the application, they plan to spend approximately $750,000 to repair the roof, complete updates to the electrical and HVAC systems, and install new landscaping. Proposed uses include space for a construction contractor, a business that restores antique motorcycles, additional personal service and retail uses. I believe they have a spa and a salon that they're looking at going in there, and also loft apartments. This is a photograph of the building from the north, looking at it from the north, looking south. This is First Avenue here. And this, you can see the roof is actually already under construction.
A large amount of the roof was done yesterday and today.
Yes. Then this is from the other side of the building. This is the corner of 2nd Avenue and
Can you go back to the previous, the little short, but that's not part of it though, correct?
I don't believe so. I think they are planning on doing some things to that building, but everything described in the application was pretty much on the larger piece.
What type of use is going to be there?
They're looking at construction contractor and vintage motorcycle repair, and then the loft apartments, and some other kind of office/retail.
No, I was thinking living quarters or something.
Yeah, they are looking, I think, the top
Okay.
floor. This is
Cool.
the proposed look of the north side. They're proposing to add some new dock doors, some new windows. And then the south side, basically repairing the windows. These new dock doors are actually already installed, I believe. In terms of pardon?
Is any landscaping going to be a little later?
Not much was proposed, I don't believe, according to the application.
The whole footprint there's about.
Yeah, just about everything is already paved. The Business Development Committee at their last meeting reviewed the proposal and recommended approval due to the fact that the work, even though it was under construction already, due to the work that's still left that would exceed the threshold to qualify for the grant. The staff recommendation on this is for denial based on the fact that the work has begun prior to the receipt of the application by city staff, and we didn't feel as staff that we would be able to recommend make an exception to that on our end. That would be something that you all would have to consider.
Hey,
But you, go ahead, Mr. Tony.
but I was going to ask him to clarify that again. When did we receive the grant application?
We received the grant application in mid-July. I believe it was the 18th, 19th of July. And
When did we change the policy?
the policy was changed, this meeting was second reading. But the provision about the work not being able to begin, or
Yeah.
needing approvals before work began, that was in there since we started this back in 2008.
Oh, that's been in there since
Yes.
2008.
But do you think the applicant felt all along that they qualify for this grant?
I can't comment on that. I got an email from John Eller at 4:30 today, and I won't read his entire email, but what he's saying in jest is that he and his business partner thought that they had adhered to all the requirements and deadlines, and for whatever reason, he wasn't able to make council tonight, but he did send an email. I don't know if any of the rest of you received it or not, but he was inquiring and asking that we approve it based on the fact that they thought that they had done everything that they were supposed to do. I'm just reading his email. I don't know how accurate that might be or inaccurate it might be. I'm just giving you the message.
Right. I know he spoke with some folks, but he never contacted me prior to the application. And
Like I said, I got that at 4:30 today.
You know, this gets back to that old thing of, I'm too blunt here, okay? Sorry. But the old thing, government says, well, we told you what day to get it in. And I've been watching the progress of that building, and I presumed all along that that was one of our biggest success stories and would be eligible for a grant. But, and I'm sort of like, well,
We're pushing success stories, and this is
Huh?
certainly, we are pushing success stories of the revitalization, so
The key location.
very,
I think he has made vast improvement in that building. And I would like us to consider an exception to the rule in this case and grant him grant.
I'll second that.
motion by Zagaroli, second by Patton. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That's unanimous. Appointments.
Yes, I've got one.
Ms. Patton, you got one down here under historic preservation?
Get to it.
Mr. Zagaroli, you've got one there.
I do. I do. You want to go first, ma'am?
Yes, Tanya Osborne to the Historic Preservation Commission.
Okay. I would like to nominate Robert Rowe to the Historic Preservation Commission, the Building Trades Profession Representative.
And I would like to appoint Harold Humphrey to the Public Art Commission. Mr. Humphrey is husband of our own Louise Humphrey, and I am satisfied that his interest and his commitment place him as highly qualified to serve on this commission, and we're very glad to have him serve. I make a motion we approve those nominations.
Second.
Motion by Wright, second by Seaver. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That's unanimous. Petitions and requests? Okay, matters not on the agenda. This is Mr. Burton's issue. And Mr. Burton, I know it seems like we're just sitting, well, really, that is the proper thing to do, is take this up under matters that arise during the meeting but weren't on the agenda, rather than jumping back and forth all through the meeting. Should Mr. Leonetti or Mr. Burry respond to Mr. Burton's comments, or?
Well, can I speak first?
Yes,
Because
sir.
I was the one that made that motion. The reason I made the motion because I was unclear. I made the, originally, I was under the impression that the building was occupied, and then it was brought to council's attention that Lenore Ryan was not going to be able to occupy the building, and that was the basis with which I made the decision last meeting. Now I'm hearing conflicting information that Lenore Ryan has indeed occupied the building, and you know, occupying a building's got a lot of different technical terms. I mean, you know, building occupancy for a building inspector is a whole different thing than it is for maybe perhaps a planning or zoning administrator. I don't know, but I felt like it was worthy of discussion because I was under the impression at the last meeting that it was just sitting vacant and not being used.
I don't think we were aware of the fact that they were paying rent on it, or lease payments.
No, that was...
That was to us.
Yeah. I was under the impression that it was empty.
Well, the reason, incidentally, just to clarify so we don't have a misunderstanding, the employee problem that LR had, there's no scandal or anything associated with that. It's an employee who was going to be a key person in this operation decided not to take the job, or decided to take a job somewhere else, is my understanding. So there's no scandal involved, but under the accreditation rules, you can't go out and say, we just hired all of these people, they've been in place now for weeks, and we'd like to have accreditation. There has to be some history. I think it's 1 year for the key people. So LR rightfully does not want to proceed forward and try to recruit students for an unaccredited program. There is, to my knowledge, no issue. It will be accredited, the right people will be in place, and they will use that building as it was always intended. I also think there's been a lot of confusion about dates and when and when things changed and what the changes are. If we need to advertise changes or make a press release or something, but if the change mainly was we didn't budget for it this next year, then I'll accept that as an oversight on my part, that I probably should have pushed for budgeting some amounts for this next year. And I'll make the motion we approve Mr. Burton's request.
I'll second.
Motion by Wright, second by Lael. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That's unanimous. Any general comments?
I'd just like to ask all the citizens of Hickory to keep your thoughts and prayers on the families that were impacted by the terrible tragedy of the same year. At Hickory High School.
In fact, I move we have a moment of silence before adjournment. Yeah, in reflection. Comment.
That's unanimous. Let's observe a moment of silence for the families of those children and for the young man who still has a lot of issues to face. Amen.
Mr. Mayor, one of the things I had, in the city snippets today, under the water bill, it says that the 9/11 remembrance is at 9 a.m., when in fact it's at 6 p.m. I think it got changed, but obviously the snippets have to be fixed before the date. I think there's a discrepancy there, and for those of you that are planning to attend, I think I'm correct, Andy, that it's 6 p.m. instead of 9 a.m.
Any further comments? Motion to adjourn? Motion by Patton, second by Caesar. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. That's
Oh, yeah. Well, I guess I had thanks you.
What kind of song and dance damn thing is it? They could deny sight because they did like the same damn thing you say. The medical, last year they did what? They turned them down. We did. Said no. Come back this week again because they're going to let this other, let them go ahead and do that sight. They denied sight. And after they did the little round, they divided what?
What you, hey, did you put Cliff's sign up in your yard? Look. That's the first thing he does after every meeting.
I know he knock you down, he get in his way.
Between now, 6 months to a year, that's going to be a huge rainstorm. And there's probably going to be some collateral damage, if not impeachment. It's going to overshadow all this stuff.
I wonder if they're going out to the car together.
See, I'll tell you this one. I know there's some IRS.
You have a good day, man.
Oh, when those people come out there, then it's over.
Have you seen the kind of election?
No, it's not that. It's spending money and stuff. And it's going to be just like Patrick Cannon's getting ready to finish on their Charlotte.
And see what's going on. And see, we clip like that and see clip like this. He's right home. That's your buddy.
He my buddy. He my buddy.
He doesn't miss him. He's right home. And mine's going to hit night for some reason, wasn't it? But, oh, so that's right.
That's what he ain't worried about. He knows he
What you call him? What you call Nick been on there talking about in that Star Town, that park we're talking about.
his house is probably about 2 or 3 miles from. Further down there, going right. Startown, you know Startown, right?
Yeah, I know. See, Startown go this way and Robert Road go that way, so like a triangle down in the big valley. See, my son stayed down there.
When you go past that road, you go to the right, and that's what
Country Club, and it ain't like. Keep things close to home, don't we?
Oh yeah. Yeah. But if you don't have money, you don't count.
And you, Neil, you're not gonna get that.